Did you take your pill today? Because a happy individual is a productive individual. And this game is quite loco. It's Project Damfall. And yeah, pretty much it's a game that's actually really fitting for the last 2 years. It's um, talking about the future where the world is coming to the end in this game, and um, there's just danger around every corner, pretty much. You start off in an apartment, and then you have to go to work. So you go down to the train station, and just the first thing you notice pretty much in this game is like the game's graphics. There's a lot of bloom effects. There's all sorts of trippy sort of LSD effects that go on, and that's pretty much the highlight of this game. Like, just it really seems to push. If you can run the game on like the max settings, like it's just so shiny and bright and groovy, I guess. So yeah, it's unsafe to go to your job, even with security around, because when you go to the train station, you see that there's a cop there, and there's a few sort of sketchy guys that look like they're well, they look like they're high in the game, but they look like they belong in a gang, and yeah, there are just so many thugs there. Now, the trippy graphics are just as good as pretty much the music. It's got some sort of electronica, some sort of loud bass music to it. But yeah, it pretty much reminds me of like, what if they made a Matrix FPS but like mixed in with LSD elements, and pretty much you get this game, Project Downfall. And so there's a pill that can like temporarily, like for 5-10 seconds, you can take in the game that makes you super strong. So you can actually kick open gates, and the gate will go flying down the stairs behind it, and in this case it actually hits a security guard, but like your super strength only lasts so long, and it also gives you like slow motion slash, better reflexes, kind of like Spider-Man. And yeah, it also enables, which is one of the oddest things I've seen in a game in a long time, is your brain actually talks to you, which doesn't make sense because you are your brain, right? But yeah, and that also yeah, it's an interesting gimmick that just suddenly your brain's talking to you after you take a pill. But it sort of starts the whole tutorials, and it feels like almost endless tutorials. Like there's always like some sort of talking, and especially when you die, you have to go back and like you have to press escape to skip the tutorial every time. So the game's not programmed to bypass tutorials you've already seen or conversations you've already seen. Which should be an option, because it gets really frustrating. Like if you die in a tough area, that you then have to watch the tutorial for like the 10th time again. So yeah, you can punch and kick. It plays a lot like Doom, but the creator doesn't want you to describe it like Doom. Their basic weapons, like I saw like a crowbar or like a lead pipe, and there's like pistols and shotguns. One person described this as like Hotline Miami meets John Wick, which I can kind of see that, but John Wick sort of doesn't just beat up people. Yeah, so it's the creator actually called this game, described it as like a fast-paced action puzzle game with harsh consequences. The harsh consequences is you can't go around, hurting like random people, because especially if the police are there in the game, they will go straight after you, and you only can take 1 or 2 hits. So it's not like Doom or other FPSs where, oh yeah, you can take 1,000,000 hits, don't worry, you'll be fine, you can take on like 50 people. No, so that's where like the puzzle slash strategy element. It's got like, it's a realistic like 80s or 90s cyberpunk game. You have to play smart, very, very smart to survive. Like there's very few bullets. So apparently there are 12 different endings. I know of 3 of them, and they're all pretty dark, just like the rest of this game. So it's just ultimately the game is very linear, and there's a lot of close quarter fights, which actually makes the game harder than it should be. and that's the greatest weakness. And then the mini tutorials that keep popping up like all the time. It's like, okay, you just want to focus on getting through the game, and there's more tutorials. Like, I feel like there's multiple ones per stage, and yeah, you can't. It just interrupts the flow of gameplay. So you just feel like you have to do and redo. Like there's a lot of repetition, and it actually builds up and gets frustrating after a while, and more annoying than fun. The other major weakness of this game is your character's movement's very clunky and slow, unless you're taking one of those like magic pills in the game, and as I said, they only last like 5-10 seconds. So like you have to, and you only can carry 3 from what I can tell. So you have to use them wisely, and not. And also, if you take too many, apparently something happens. I'm not sure. I never found out. But yeah, the problem is like the amazing graphics and the pretty good music. It just does not make up for like the very linear and like very not static, but very frustrating. Just having to repeat the stages, having to repeat the tutorials. It's very punishing, like a very punishing game, and yeah, it feels like you're playing in a small hallway, stage after stage, unfortunately, and then you can't maneuver around the stage because they've purposely designed it so that you're often in a linear hallway, and you can't really use like advanced tactics because you can't maneuver and run around like in Doom. So if you want to experience a game FPS that looks like very different than most of the ones out there, it's got a unique atmosphere, I would say give it a shot. It's very tough. I'd give it a solid 7 out of 10. But if you don't like heavily linear games that force you to repeat almost every single stage you play like 10 times or more, yeah, I think for most people, even though this game's in early access, this would feel like a 5 or 6 out of 10. It looks great, but it's far more frustrating than thrilling, and like the gimmicks, like the sort of the Matrix pills, like it doesn't compensate for the rest of the game, the gameplay. So watch out for popping pills. Bye.